guys, so I'm back again with doing a chart analysis, looking into one of my clients' birth charts, and this is based on Vedic or Indian astrology, sidereal astrology. I'm sure most of you guys have, learned a little bit about Western astrology, but I would say Vedic or Indian astrology is by far the most accurate. So I'm gonna go ahead and get into her birth chart analysis again. For the most part, in this service that I was providing for my clients, I was trying to discuss, for the most part, I guess where my clients would most benefit from, like probably career-wise or just like any aspect in their life. In her case, there's a specific topic I want to touch up on, and I'm gonna go ahead and get into that later, but I feel like maybe this would bring her some form of peace of mind pertaining to her father, because her father wasn't necessarily involved in her life, but I'm gonna touch base on that later. As I did with my last client, I went ahead and I kind of like briefly went over, I guess, more or less like their personality types, and then also their ascendant and moon signs. So the ascendant in astrology does kind of explain how the external world kind of views you, or the first impression that you give off to people. So in her case, she does have Sagittarius in the first house, so that's her ascendant, which is Sagittarius. So in her case, she would come off as like very philosophical, or at least wanting to like not be preaching in a bad way, but she wants to share her knowledge and whatnot. So I feel like also when her children happen to be older, I feel like that might be the case where she might actually like be inclined to like being philosophical with them, or being kind of like somewhat of a guru or a teacher to them, pertaining to like life lessons, etc. So also in her upbringing, this could actually indicate, since we have Capricorn in the second house, which is like her childhood or upbringing, this could kind of indicate that her upbringing was very disciplined, and so was the family and their beliefs. Also pertaining to her income or money, she's not the type to like be risky with her money, or she's very disciplined or methodical in how she spends money. Also, she would like to associate with people who have some form of knowledge to offer to her. She's not the type to like want to waste time on, senseless communication, unless there's some form of depth to the communication, or some form of, underlying message to it. Also, so how you guys have your ascendant in your birth chart, which is what sign your first house is sitting in, or what sign is in your first house. And again, in astrology, there's 12 houses. That kind of sets up the rest of the chart, or what type of sign precedes the first house. So in her case, moving on to the fourth house, she does have it in Pisces. So pertaining to her home life, she would prefer to have like her home life to be kind of serene and peaceful. Also, like, she could have like a very spiritual like household, or maybe you would be able to find later on, I don't think she has her own house, but I feel like hypothetically, if she were to buy decor for the house, I think it'd be like very inviting or serene, and also like maybe there you might find some like spiritual items there as well. So as a parent, this could also indicate that with her children, she's going to be very involved in their education and then physical activities. And also, for the most part, I mean, she would have good health throughout her life, and then also be very inclined to being very communicative with her partner or spouse. Okay, so moving on, I'm gonna go ahead and touch base on her sun sign, which does sit in Aquarius in the third house. So personality, so she's the type of person who would probably want to improve, I guess, her life, but then also the lives of others, I would say, or her network or people around her. So in her case, when it comes to interacting with people, she's more likely to get along with people. She takes the role of a team player instead of a leader, or if she tries to take like the more dominant role in groups, I feel like she might run into conflict, especially with women in the home. But I'll go ahead and touch further base on that later on as I keep going. But so also in astrology, so the sun represents the father and the moon represents the mother in astrology. So in this case, the sun is sitting in Aquarius. So since the sun is sitting in Aquarius, which is ruled by Saturn, Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, and then also Rahu. These are kind of enemies of the sun. So the sun does not get along with Rahu whatsoever, which also happens to be sitting in the 12th house. And the 12th house does represent losses or distant places. So in her case, this kind of explains why her father was not involved in her childhood or upbringing, or how he was completely absent. So that's something that I found kind of important in her case, where I kind of need to elaborate on that. So pertaining to the relationship between her and her father, it would have been very unorthodox, or like he was pretty much destined, or in her case, like he wouldn't even have been a good father. He would have had like a very scattered personality, and he had like no desire whatsoever to like be part of any type of child's upbringing or discipline. So this is why you could probably say he decided not to be actively present in her life. So as I mentioned, like astrology kind of explains why you're kind of predestined to go through certain things in your life. So I feel like in her case, unfortunately, it was kind of destined for her father not to be involved. So with this placement, this could also explain why the father could have gotten detached, because with this placement, it does indicate detachment from the father. She would have felt like her father did not contribute anything to her life. And this also explains, of course, why consequently she was abandoned by her father. Also, not to really elaborate or go into the father's life, but he could have had like a career in third house activities such as travel or transportation, or acquiring careers such as those dealing with technology, etc. Okay, so moving on, I'm gonna go ahead and talk about the moon in Taurus in the 6th house. So the moon represents the mind or the mother, and also your emotional responses to the external world, or how you kind of react emotionally to things. So pertaining to the moon, like she's kind of inclined to like subjects such as medicine, military, or law enforcement. Also, this could have also indicated, since it is sitting in the 6th house of conflict or enemies, this could have indicated that growing up she might have had conflict with her mother, or not have gotten along with a mother. So the moon also does represent female energy, so this could also indicate why she didn't get along with females for the most part, or why she probably still struggles. So the 6th house also aspects the 3rd house of siblings, so this would also indicate conflict with siblings growing up. And then as a consequence of having the moon here in the 6th house, you know, her being exposed to conflict throughout her life, she would be, you know, she would benefit from turning to spirituality as a remedy to treat stress or conflicts in her life. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to Lord of the 11th house, which is Venus. So Libra is sitting in her 11th house, and the Lord of that, which is Venus, is sitting in the 4th house of Pisces. So what is the 11th house? So the 11th house is the house of gains or wishes, or like the type of things that would manifest in your life that are like your wish come trues. So in her case, with this type of placement, she would like to have friends over to her home, or happiness comes from friendships, or she would most benefit from friendships or her network circles. She would also love to creating female friendships, or also friendships with feminine like men, who can expand her creative and spiritual horizons. So also, since Venus does represent the spouse in astrology, if this was a man's chart, it would represent the wife, but since she's a female, I'm analyzing a female's chart, I'm going to take that as a spouse. So this also represents that the spouse would be bringing in gains, or would be like the one for the most part bringing in the money into the household. But then this also indicates, since the fourth house does relate to home or real estate, there's also a possibility here that she could possibly have gains throughout her life through real estate or resources from the mother. So the mother would provide some form of conveniency later on to her throughout her life. Okay, so now analyzing the Lord of the sixth house, which is in the sign of Taurus, or Taurus sits in her sixth house, and the Lord of that is Venus, and Venus is sitting in the fourth house of Pisces. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how she's likely to have conflict in the home without ever being the reason for the conflict. Okay, so the sixth Lord indicates that conflict would be coming to her in her home, but she's never really the source of this conflict. Also, this indicates that females in the home would bring her disputes to her without her ever being really the cause for it. So a lot of times, like, she might have had conflict with females without really knowing why. And then also, again, since Venus does represent the spouse, this would also indicate that the spouse would bring some form of conflict to her or conflict to the household. So now I'm going to talk about Jupiter. So Jupiter just talk about someone's blessings in their life, and Jupiter is sitting in the 12th house of Scorpio for her. So Jupiter in the 12th house, she can benefit from subjects as spirituality. So I did mention to her that I have this similar placement, except my Jupiter is in Cancer. But if she wanted to get into spirituality or have like a spiritual based business, she could be successful at that, because she's essentially made for taboo subjects. Also, Jupiter in the 12th house, this could indicate that she could, benefit from all things related to Scorpio, and Scorpio is ruled by Mars. So Mars is ruled, or indicates, represents aggression, or, careers such as in law enforcement. Mars also does represent physical activity, so she could possibly benefit from careers or jobs related to either or, like physical activities, etc. Like, for instance, I'll give you an example, like a fitness trainer or a yoga teacher or something like that. I did bring up to her, like you could probably do really well if you were to open your own fitness studio or something like that. I feel like that would be really good for her. So anything related to athleticism or anything that requires like physical force or energy, that's what she would most likely benefit from in this life. So also, when we talk about Jupiter, the Jupiter does represent a female's husband in her chart. So with her having Jupiter in the 12th house, which represents like distant places, non-physical locations or something like that, such as like the internet, she could meet her spouse over the internet or in distant places such as like hospitals or something like that, or remote locations like in the middle of nowhere, etc. But in her case, I did ask her where her current partner, like where they might have met. She did mention that they kind of started talking over the internet. So I do feel as though like maybe her current partner, whoever she's with, is the person that she's meant to be with, or is likely to become like officially her spouse later on. So now I'm going to talk about the ruler of the first, which is Jupiter. So the first house has Sagittarius in it, and Jupiter rules Sagittarius, but it's sitting in the 12th house. So with this could indicate that she likes to spend time alone or kind of like behind the scenes. She doesn't really like being out there, like, being a low socialite or extroverted type of person that's out there like partying and like meeting people and being like social butterfly. I feel like she's more like, the person that, likes to hang out at home or kind of chill out with people like in, not so very public places. So also this could incline her to like spirituality or, occult subjects such as like tarot, astrology, meditation, etc. Spiritual subjects like that. And I did bring that up because I feel like spirituality would play a big role in her life. So also she would make a really good teacher again for physical activities such as yoga, martial arts, etc. She's like very athletic and fit, so it kind of explains a lot. So I really think like she would probably excel like being a teacher of physical activities. So that's my recommendation to her. Open your studio, become a teacher of such things, because I think you would really do well in that. Also like meditation or like yoga classes, I think that would be pretty cool for her. So now I'm going to talk about the Lord ruler of the 4th. So in her 4th house she has Pisces, and again Jupiter is sitting in her 12th. So Lord of the 4th is sitting in her 12th. So this could indicate that mother was a spiritual person, and also she's likely to find spiritual teachers or gurus that are likely to be female. And this also makes her a very intelligent person with this type of placement. So now talking about Jupiter and Scorpio. So again, Jupiter does represent the husband. So I also asked her, what's your significant other's zodiac sign? He so happens to be a Scorpio, and that's kind of funny and odd. But I kind of was asking her questions about his personality, because since it does represent the husband in astrology, this would have made her significant others like a very intense personality, kind of secretive, kind of dark in a sense. Her spouse is more than likely to keep secrets from her, something like that. Also, her husband, if he were to be like involved in business, he would be like a very intense business person, very domineering in business. What else? Also, in this case, so this could either talk about her husband, or her significant other. So this type of person with having Jupiter and Scorpio would use like people's secret information and then kind of use it against them, or to kind of play dirty or something like that, or kind of manipulate things to how they want. But I don't really feel like this is her. I feel like if this is more than likely her spouse. So yeah, that's for the most part what I have. So that's pretty much the breakdown of her chart in terms of looking at Jupiterian placements or what she's more likely to benefit from, and then also kind of explaining her personality. So again, my recommendation for her is to kind of stick within the realm of like physical activity, because I feel like she kind of has figured out her little niche where she's good at. Plus she's like physically active and fit, so I feel like if she were to open like a business or something like that, or become an instructor for such things, like maybe a fitness trainer or something like that, she would do really well. So that's what I feel like she would most benefit from in her life. And so I hope you guys enjoyed this explanation, or this like small breakdown of her astrological chart. Of course, astrology could explain like a lot of things, but for this service, of course, I was just kind of like looking into what she would most benefit from throughout her life, throughout her career. She wanted to open a business or something like that. That's my explanation. So if you guys want something similar to this, go ahead and message me. My information could be found in the about section. You guys could find me on Facebook. I do these a little analysis for $40, and then I create a video and then post it up for you guys here. All right, so thank you for you guys watching. I'll go ahead and catch you guys later. Okay, bye.